The training material that you are about to see is intended as a general overview of the subject being presented. This training is not being offered as an in-depth course and may not address all aspects of the subject matter being discussed. Always follow your plant's policies and procedures, which may differ from the video. MTS training videos frequently feature exercise questions designed to test the knowledge and awareness of the employees viewing the training. When the question mark symbol appears in the corner of the screen, you may choose to press pause on your video player and discuss the exercise question.
From this reenactment, we see what can happen when mobile equipment operators and/or pedestrians are not focused on safety. The term mobile equipment applies to a wide variety of equipment, including cranes, aerial man lifts, scissor lifts, material handlers, fork trucks, even maintenance carts and golf carts. We all recognize the tremendous value that mobile equipment provides, but we do not always recognize the potential risk this equipment poses. Mobile equipment incidents that result in injury or property damage are normally infrequent occurrences. But when a mobile equipment incident does occur, it is often very serious or fatal. Therefore, as we go through our workday, we must be constantly aware of mobile equipment in our work area. This training will focus on life-saving content and provide real-life incidents that resulted in serious injury or death, which can be used to prevent similar incidents from reoccurring. The life-saving areas we will focus on are pre-use inspections, boarding and deboarding mobile equipment, driving and pedestrian safety, blind spots and equipment backing, and loading, unloading, and load securement.
When I first started out in the scrap industry, there was an incident where I was backing through a gate. A woman in a Maverick had backed her car into the work area, and I backed into her car, crushing the back.
Now, there was a near miss where forklift was almost taken out by a C-Tech driver, and just realizing how big those things are. You could have been done not going home to your family. You got to be aware of your surroundings at all times.
I stay safe by being aware of who or what is around or near my work zone.
The best way to stay safe is to know the person, for one, that you're operating with, and to always be aware of where he's at.
And if I have to move, I make sure they're aware of where I'm at and where I'm going.
Look both ways, going around corners, checking before you actually step out into an aisle. Stay in the designated walking areas. It's a very, very important thing to do.
Prior to operating mobile equipment, operators must perform a pre-use inspection. It should be noted that specific elements of pre-use inspections depend on the type of mobile equipment. Please refer to your site-specific pre-use inspection procedures or forms to determine what needs to be checked as part of pre-use inspections. In general, equipment inspections begin with the operator conducting a visual inspection with the power off. This inspection may include checking the condition of hoses, boom cylinders, and pins, belts, tires, fluid levels, attachment cables, and seatbelt function if equipped. After completing the initial pre-use inspection, the operator must conduct an operational inspection with the engine running. This inspection may include checks on such items as the horn, lights, swing brake, boom controls, and outriggers. If a magnet is attached, be sure the on and off switches are checked. And if a grapple is attached, check the rotation and make sure that it opens and closes. Equipment that is unsafe to operate must be removed from service, and maintenance must be notified so that repairs can be made before the equipment is returned to service.
Yes, I have personally been involved in an incident while boarding mobile equipment. When I was boarding a forklift, I didn't use 3 points of contact and I slipped.
You want to make sure you have 3 points of contact when when climbing onto a vehicle.
Make sure your step is clear so you don't trip or slip off your forklift.
I stay safe by using 3 points of contact while boarding and deboarding mobile equipment.
Many serious injuries have occurred while operators are boarding or deboarding mobile equipment. In order to prevent such injuries, use 3 points of contact when boarding or deboarding equipment. That means 2 hands and 1 foot, or both feet and 1 hand. Always face the equipment, maintain a good grip, and be careful with your footing when boarding and deboarding equipment. Occupying your hands with items will hinder your ability to effectively establish and maintain an adequate grip. Inspect your work boots and the steps or rungs for any hazards that may cause you to slip. It is imperative that access ladders are maintained in good working condition. Another vital component of the boarding and deboarding process is handrails. Handrails should be inspected for cracked welds, loose bolts, excessive rust, sharp edges, and bent or weakened metal. If any substandard conditions are present, a supervisor must be contacted immediately, and the condition must be documented appropriately on a pre-shift inspection form. When deboarding, prior to stepping onto the ground, inspect the area for unsafe conditions and stay clear of such conditions as loose gravel, scrap, potholes, mud, or ice. Never jump down off the equipment. Designated parking areas for equipment must be kept clear of trip hazards and excess debris. These areas should be on level ground and cleaned regularly. If parking equipment outside, designated parking areas must be graded regularly, and weather conditions must also be taken into account. These areas must be maintained so that excessive snow, ice, and water are not present. Can you detect the hazard in this scene? This operator is not using 3 points of contact while deboarding the mobile equipment. Following the proper boarding and deboarding procedures and using 3 points of contact will ensure that you do not fall from any equipment.
Always survey your area before you move the forklift or your load. Make sure you're aware of anybody around you.
As an operator, always be aware of your surroundings and use a spotter whenever there are blind spots.
If there's any potholes in the ground, be aware of that. That way you can go ahead and stay clear of any obstacles.
Check your blind spots, check your mirrors, and honk your horn before you start moving.
The most severe and fatal mobile equipment incidents occur when a person is caught between in a pinch point, struck by the mobile equipment or the load, or crushed by the equipment in a tip-over. Injuries can occur to the operator, coworker, or pedestrian, and in order to prevent such injuries, operators and employees on the floor must maintain safe distances and avoid danger zones or pinch point situations. Recently, a fatality occurred when an employee was guiding a forklift into position. The employee positioned himself between the load and while guiding the operator, the forklift lunged forward and the employee was pinched. In order to prevent this type of serious incident, staying out of the danger zone is critical. Operators must never drive up to someone who is in front of any fixed object where they could be pinned, and employees on the floor must never position themselves in the danger zone. In addition, separate mobile equipment and pedestrian traffic as much as possible. Designated traffic areas and walkways for pedestrians must be established to maintain safety margins for mobile equipment and pedestrians. Operators must eliminate distractions. When it comes to operating mobile equipment, there are 3 main types of distractions. Visual, taking your eyes off the task or path of travel. Manual, taking your hands off the controls. And cognitive, taking your mind off the task. Always observe your facility's traffic and cell phone regulations. Another mobile equipment consideration is the noise level in your workplace. If you are an operator, do not assume pedestrians or other vehicles are able to hear your equipment coming toward them. A best practice is to install a blue light on the front and rear of mobile equipment. The light projects a bright circle onto the floor to warn those working around mobile equipment of approaching equipment to prevent dangerous conditions. Another best practice is to install broadband alarms. These alarms use multiple frequencies that have the ability to cut through background noise, making it easier to locate and preventing workers from becoming desensitized to the sound. When operating mobile equipment of any kind, operate it within the working load limits. If the equipment contains outriggers, be sure they are used and used properly. Stay away from edges of ramps, docks, or other situations which could create a tip-over situation.
An operator was carrying a relatively small load up a narrow ramp when the left front wheel slipped off the side, causing the forklift to tip over. The operator was not restrained in the seat by a seatbelt and was thrown from the cab and crushed to death by the forklift cab support structure. The dynamic forces that result when mobile equipment and loads are put into motion must always be considered. The shift in the center of gravity due to the forces created when the machine is moving, braking, cornering, lifting, tilting, and lowering loads are important stability considerations. Always follow the procedures for safe operation of mobile equipment. In addition, always wear seat belts and keep both hands on the wheel. If the equipment starts to tip over, stay in the cab. Brace your feet and ride the machine over.
Yes. I have been involved in a, in a blind spot incident in a loader, and it was a blind spot to where a vehicle was not where it should have been, and made a turn in a blind spot, and did bump the front end of the vehicle. You could have, there was two ways I could have possibly myself. Been a little more aware of the blind spot that I didn't see where that vehicle was. Same with the operator of the other vehicle.
Recently, an employee was struck by a forklift while walking through a plant. From this point of view, it is hard to believe that an incident even occurred until we see the operator's point of view. All that he sees is an empty walkway until it is too late. Unfortunately, incidents like this are common because employees working around mobile equipment often fail to recognize the limited field of vision that equipment operators have, or they fail to recognize equipment blind spots. It is important to never assume that mobile equipment can see you when you are a pedestrian. Some situations that create blind spots are corners of buildings, stacks of product or materials, and structural supports that exist in the cab of mobile equipment. From this, you can see how difficult it is for an operator to see clearly in all directions. Pedestrians literally disappear from view. Therefore, it is critical for pedestrians to be aware of blind spots and always give mobile equipment the right of way. If you need to approach an operator, make sure you make eye contact and the operator acknowledges your presence before approaching. Operators can help prevent incidents by ensuring proper visibility when operating equipment. Inspect mirrors to ensure they are clean and positioned properly. Never transport loads that obstruct the view in forward motion. Split the load, travel in reverse, or use a spotter. When backing, use your mirrors and turn around to see clearly. When using a spotter, make sure hand signals being given are understood and that the spotter is in a safe position. Be sure to follow all posted speed limit signs, slow down, and sound the horn at blind corners, pedestrian or equipment crossings, and other locations where vision is obstructed or converging traffic is present. Potential hazards exist when loading, securing loads, and unloading. These hazards can be contributed to off-center loads which may fall over, overloading, damaged or loose loads, or careless or complacent operating practices. When approaching a load, do so slowly and carefully. Never overload the equipment. Operators must exercise extra caution when handling loads that approach its maximum capacity. While lifting the load, be aware of the load falling or being stuck. Secure the load so it is safely arranged and stable. Center the load as close as possible. Do not carry loads that are not secure. Loads may be secured by wrapping or banding. Both mobile equipment operators and pedestrians play an important role in safe equipment operation. Everyone must keep in mind how important mobile equipment safety is and never become complacent.